Welcome to the Profit Share Mastery Podcast with your hosts, Linda and Press McKissack.
Hey, Press, how are you?
Hey, Linda, I'm good. How are you doing this week?
Doing fantastic. Super excited about the news we're going to share today.
I know this has been under wraps for a while, and we've been working hard for the last few months. So I'm excited to officially break the news. You want to tell them first?
No, you go ahead.
All right. Well, without further ado, Linda and I are super excited to announce that after months of work and preparation and a lot of videoing and editing, we have officially revamped our Profit Share online course. And so you can now get what is now called the Profit Share Masterclass on our profitsharemastery.com website. So we took, Linda, let's kind of take them back for a minute on the journey that we've been on with our Profit Share course. What year did we first come out with our content? It was probably 2018, 19.
I don't know. When did you graduate from college? Because you went and shadowed Katie Bry and all that. And then you came to work.
I feel like it was a few years in though. It was probably around 18 or 19 when we started putting all the material together. And basically what I did is I listened to Linda. My desk was right next to her when I lived in Texas. And I'd sit there, and Linda's the person in Keller Williams that gets the calls from the agents who they're ready to be done with selling real estate, and they're ready for their next opportunity. They're ready to move. In a lot of our cases, they're ready to move to Florida, Linda.
Yes.
And
sure.
The problem they have though is that they don't have enough passive income. And so they will call Linda and say, what do I do? I'm ready to retire, but I can't because of the money I'm making. Teach me about profit share. And I would listen to you, Linda, just basically say the same thing over and over and over again. And after you hear it enough times, I started to see the pattern. And so I helped Linda take what she was teaching people and turn that into a framework to be able to give people, to help them. If anyone wanted to go build their wealth, they can now do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and actually, Press, it's the same framework that I used to build my real estate practice to over 200 transactions a year. It's also the same framework I used when I was sent up to Ohio in 2000 with no idea how you build a region, and just did what had always worked for me in the past, which was this formula. So yeah, and then I think we moved into group coaching it a little bit, and then we moved into an online course.
Yep. And so that was probably 2000 or so when we launched our original online course. And then
not 2000.
When would the online course have come out?
Because how old were you? Year 2000.
I'm sorry, not 2020. Sorry.
There we go. There we go. Now we're talking.
When Press was 9, we came out with the content.
He was a brilliant child. He was a prodigy.
Sorry. I had a brain fart there. Yeah. 2020, I think, is when we came out with the online course. That's too funny. So anyways, we launched that. And one of the things we did in that course, it was good. It just didn't have everything. And one of the big differences, Linda, because what's cool is you and I are doing this every day. It's not like we're just taking what we've read in a book and putting it, into a course. You and I get to talk to the top profit share earners. We're talking to the people who are growing their downlines the most. And one of the things we did in the first version of the course was I was teaching people how to go build a recruiting website. And so I had success with Nick. A lot of you know Nick's story. My friend growing up, he got focused on profit share, and in a span of 4 years, recruited over 500 people into the company and grew his profit share from 0 to over 100,000 in profit share. And so I took that knowledge and we put it into the course on how people can go build their own recruiting website. Linda, what did we find?
We learned so much. I mean, that's the thing. I think you have to keep redoing your courses if you're working on the ground with people, because that's where you honestly get the nuggets that can make your courses even better and better. And I think we learned a ton of things by doing that the way we did at the beginning.
And one of the big things, Linda, was the fact that very few people actually went out and did what we taught them to do on the recruiting website, because it's technical, it's complicated, it's time consuming. There's a lot of front end work. And so, that section was good, but it didn't serve its purpose because people weren't out, they weren't building a recruiting website. So, fast forward to this last year, Linda and I launched our Profit Share Mastery recruiting websites back, I think it was probably, 2022, probably in the first quarter. And so when we launched that, we didn't know how many people would want to do it, but we quickly had over 300 people who are now building their wealth through our recruiting site. So there was demand for it. They just weren't willing to do it themselves. So when we recreated the course, we added in there no longer how to build it, but but what are the best practices? Because now you can just partner with our platform. And so what are the best practices that you can do to have the most effective recruiting call? What does it look like to have a recruiting call in 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes? What does it look like to generate leads online for recruits? All of those different components we've built into the new version of the course, which I think is way more beneficial for people because now they're not worried about building stuff. They're worried about implementing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the proof is in the pudding, right? Because the results speak for themselves.
Yes. And I'll tell you what, some of my favorite stories from this last year, I'll share a couple of them. Chad and Carrie Carrico, who we had on the podcast before, they recruited 50 people in like a 12-month time period from jumping in and using a recruiting site. We've had Robert Bell, who is one of our favorites, who's at Keller Williams International, doesn't even have a real estate license. He works in the Keller Williams University department, and he recruited, I think it was 9 people last year into his downline. In fact, we were just at the RD meeting and Mark King talked about Robert Bell for a minute and how he's #1 at KWRI for growing his downline using our
really? That's
isn't that
cool.
cool?
You missed telling me that story.
And then the other one that I love is Heather Fisher. Heather is a rock star director of operations on a team. And she's not the person who would ever pick up the phone and cold call agents, right, to recruit them. But you give her a process and a system to follow. And in 90 days, she recruited like 15, 16 people into her downline. So we have, and that's just a few, many amazing stories of people who've decided they're going to go build their wealth and have used what we have been teaching them and the system we provide in order to go do that. So that's all infused as well into the course.
Yeah. And I think, you've made it as simple as you possibly could. And that's why people are having such success. And I think, as we get best practices and learn from each other, we just keep adding those tools and making them available for everybody.
Yeah, that's right. And we also, one of the things we did, Linda, is we broke down the course a little bit differently this time. It's into 4 sections. And we added even more content than what was there before. So in the first section of the course, it's all about wealth building, not just profit share, but just principles. I look up to Linda and Jim. They're 2 of the most wealthy people that I know. And the principle, what I love about Jim and Linda is it is very common for someone to talk to you, Linda, and for them to say, if Linda and Jim can do it, I can do it. Because you'll have a very simple approach to wealth. It's practical, but it's also effective. And so in module 1, you speak on that. Is there anything you want to add, Linda, to section 1 on wealth building?
Well, I think for profit share to matter, wealth building has to matter. And so the reason we're always going to have a segment on wealth building is because we want to drive home to people that wealth building gives you options, gives you leverage, gives you freedom of time, money, and relationships. And when you make that decision that wealth building is important, then the next decision you have to make is which vehicle is the easiest with the least amount of risk and the least amount of liability and money for me to jump into to build that wealth. And unanimously, anybody in KW would have to say profit share, right? Because if we're going to teach you our hold system, then you're going to have to find the money, you're going to have to find the credit. There's so many things that you have to put together. And so we'll always have a section on wealth building because wealth building has to become super important to people before they start looking for what vehicle to get into. Yeah,
for sure. And then section 2 of the new version of the course is what we call Profit Share Mastery. And this is some of the content from the first course, and we've added in some more things as profit share has evolved. This is really helping you understand what is profit share, how does it work, what are the basic principles you need to understand in order to grow your downline, and then also what are the ways that you should think about profit share in order to make it most effective. Right? There's a difference between trying to go build every level of your downline versus focusing in on a specific level. Which level's the best to focus on? Why? Things
Mhm.
like that, the basics. And so we, I always say like module 2 is really good, but it's honestly, you don't, it's good to know, but you never have to explain this, right, Linda?
That's so true. And we debated about whether to put it in there or not. And I think there's enough people that feel like they need to have some knowledge around it. And that's why we put it in there. But again, you could never even learn or memorize any of that stuff and still do a phenomenal job of building wealth through profit share.
Yeah. Well, and for all of you high analytical people, high C's on the DISC, you're welcome. That section's for you. So you're clear on profit share. Section 3 of the course, and this is where we really dove in deep, Linda, is section 3 and 4. Section 3, we're calling it our recruiting platform model. And then section 4 is our influential agent model. So I'm going to take a second and talk on the recruiting platform model. Linda, I'm going to have you talk on the influential agent model.
Okay.
So section 3, recruiting platform model, is all about what we talked about earlier. How do you take our recruiting platform or a recruiting platform, and how do you plug into that and get the optimal results? How do you generate the most leads for the most effective dollar spend? What are the best practices around a recruiting call? How do you get better at that skill set and make them more efficient and effective? How do you ask for sponsorship? How do you do a handoff to a market center? What's the best practices? And so that whole section is no longer about how to go build a recruiting site. It's now about how do you leverage a recruiting site to be most effective?
Right. Yeah, because now that we figured out that the best way to help people on those platforms is to provide the platform, now we just want to get to the material that's going to make them most effective and best practices. We've heard from so many of the success stories that we've already created and get to be a part of. That's
right. So then, Linda, walk us through the 4th section in the course is the influential agent model. What is that?
Well, I think, even if somebody picks the recruiting platform to do, I think you should always be doing both. But I think you have to understand that why not go ahead and get the fruits of building influence in your marketplace? It's going to help you in so many ways. So these are just good practices for you to build influence in your real estate market. And it is going to be what helps you recruit influential agents. And so it's the formula that I say. I built my real estate practice to 200 transactions a year. I built Ohio Valley with it, from 0 offices to 27 offices to 5,000 realtors. It's what we use to build our wealth. It's just a formula that's been tried and true. And that is, capital R, which is who do you want to be a hero to, getting clarity about who do you already serve, who do you love to serve, what agents or what level of production are you already helping in your office, those kinds of things. And then the next is what is your credibility or your validity, because if you don't have credibility, no one will give you the time of day to even start a relationship with them. And we see recruiting as more relationship than we do recruiting. And so this is really a formula for you to build relationships, no matter who you're trying to build a relationship with. And then the last letter or the last letter on top of the formula is another V, which is like Zig Ziglar says, you get what you want in life by helping enough other people get what it is they want. And so that V stands for do they see value in right now, or what is their biggest value gap that they have right now? And until you know that, you really can't help them and serve them. And then the bottom, you put a line under all of that and you put a capital T, and that just says you got to put the time in. And because we teach you it's not either or, it's not like I've got one more thing now to do with my time. You're going to learn how to do it in the time that you're already doing other things. And then they'll get to decide, unfortunately, how long it takes. But that's kind of really in a nutshell, the formula. But it's a great formula and it's going to serve you well in your business and in everything else. But it's definitely one if you want to attract influential agents.
Well, Linda, what I love most about the influential agent model is, to your point, you said it's not just about building your profit share. What I watched you do in your, in your story, your life story, in your business, you showed up a certain way and you behaved a certain way. And because of that, it opened doors to other opportunities, to market centers, to a region, to profit share, to building your business as big as, you could build it at the time. So there's all these benefits of leveraging the influential agent model that's not just profit share.
Right. For
And
sure.
I think that's kind of what I love about that model, is because it's a model for life. It's
Yep.
not truly just a model for, it's not only going to help you in profit share. It will help you in everything, every door you want to walk through. If you follow that formula, you're going to get greater benefit.
In a real recent example, Press, I was just at an event with John Maxwell, and Dr. Henry Cloud was there, which is the guy who wrote Trust and Boundaries and Necessary Endings. He's just a phenomenal human, and he's just very brilliant. And honestly, those are people that are in my R. They're people that are in my R category. Some of them are authors and people who I want to learn from and those kind of things. And we were at an opportunity. And so, we had credibility because we were there at an event with John. So that immediately gave us credibility with Henry because we were there with John. And then he had a value gap, and that was his back was hurting and he didn't want to drive his car back to Atlanta for an hour and 20 minutes to hop on a commercial flight to get all the way back to LA. So just so happened, we were on a private plane and were able to give him a ride, filled his value gap. And guess what? Created some beholdenness and reciprocity. And guess what? He's agreed to be on our podcast. So, I could show you a million ways that this formula, once you have it memorized and understand it, it really is about being a giver. And when the time's right, you ask for them to take a bigger step with you. And if you've done it all right, they will. And if you haven't, you go back to step one and start doing it again.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, Linda, in closing, what I love is we now have what you and I have talked about, the two biggest pieces to anyone's success. You've got the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, you and I talk about, you should be doing both strategies. You should be doing the recruiting platform, and you should be doing the influential agent. Both strategies are effective. And the more you do both, the more output you're going to get, which is people in your downline and helping change lives. So you've got the system. We've now had that out for a year now plus. And now we have the masterclass, which is your skill set, because there is an art and a skill to building your downline and doing it the right way, and not doing it the wrong way, because there's plenty of wrong ways to do that. And so we now have both options. So what's cool is, if you want to jump in, our course is now live. You're hearing this, it's now live. You can go to profitsharemastery.com and click Get the Masterclass. And we would absolutely be honored if you would go through that content, go through our material, give us your feedback, give us your ahas. I think you're going to have a lot. And quite possibly, I think it has the potential to help you change your financial future and your wealth building journey inside of KW.
Yeah, love it. So Press, it's available. If they're hearing this podcast, it's available now, correct?
Yep. ProfitShareMastery.com, and then click Get the Masterclass, and you can sign up immediately. And what's great, Linda, is it's an online course. So it's a go at your own pace. There's hours of content. So you want to binge, if you like your Netflix and you want to binge watch, you binge watch. If not, and you want to take your time through it. The other exciting thing, Linda, is we've given everyone a workbook, and this is a new addition from the original course. You have a workbook to work through as you're working through the material. And I don't know about you, but when I go to a great KW class or a great training, when I'm given a workbook to follow, I actually get more out of it, because I'm forced to write out and do the exercises and not just listen and then move on.
Yeah, got it. Well, I'm super excited. I can't wait to get feedback. I can't wait to see what new people want to come on board and build wealth, change lives, and create a legacy.
Awesome. All right, Linda, appreciate you. Go get your version of the masterclass, and we'll see you next time on the podcast.
Next time on the podcast.